Okay, in this video I want to ask the question, are people with borderline personality disorder aware, psychologically aware of their behavior? Um, I'm going to say no, and I'll explain to you why. So first off, if you're new to these videos, borderline personality disorder is a very serious mental illness. And we're not talking about somebody who has borderline traits, or somebody who's a crazy ex, or somebody who's jealous, or somebody who's insecure, or somebody who's got maybe other real issues, bipolar or something like that, which is a real issue. Borderline personality disorder is a very specific and it is a very real mental illness. It is very serious. If you have it, go get help so you can be happy. If you're in a relationship, especially a romantic relationship with somebody with borderline personality disorder, these videos are for you so that you can know what you're getting into and hopefully get out. The only other thing is, if they are getting help, targeted help, they can recover. I don't have experience with that. I tried to make that happen. It didn't happen in my case. And I guess I'm grateful that it did, because now looking back on it, it probably would have taken a very long time. It may take a long time for them to get able to recover, and maybe they might not even be able to do that while they're in a relationship. So my advice, if you're in a relationship with someone with borderline, the kindest thing you can do is to go and really determine if their behavior is borderline, and then tell them, listen, I love you, but your behavior is really harmful to me. You have borderline. Please go get help. If you get help, give me a call. That's probably the kindest thing you can ever do. Okay. But the question is, are borderlines aware of their behavior? And I'm going to tell you that they are not. Now, that's going to be very confusing, because borderlines are usually very intelligent. If they're of the type that I was with, which was impulsive and or quiet, they are extremely high functioning, very intelligent, extremely charming, very attractive, extremely dynamic. Probably they ooze sexuality, and they're like, they walk in the room and the whole room looks at them. The opposite sex, or whatever sexual orientation they have, those people, like moths, will be on them. They're so exciting to be around. And that's part of the intoxication. You get intoxicated by that, and then it's so hard to leave, even when they're so cruel. Because when they love you, boy, it's the best thing in the world. And then when they hate you, it's so hard to leave, because you hope you can get them to love you again. And so in those phases, my experience, and I think this is true with a lot of people, there's the initial idealization phase, which really hooks you into it. That could last for an extended period of time. Might last weeks, maybe even months, I don't know. But at some point during that phase, they lose their ability to tolerate their negative feelings, and then they will go through a crash. Now you will be hooked in, because they have been pouring this love on you and idealizing you and making you the most amazing person and adoring you. And so you're hooked, because you think this is who they are, but it's not. And then what happens is comes the crash, and then the fights happen. And if you're like in my case, the fights go from, I love you, you're the best person in the world, to the next day, I hate you, I can never talk to you again, you're the most destructive person, I'm breaking off all contact. That extreme, sometimes within hours. And what will happen then is that they will come back. It's what they call hoovering, which is like a vacuum. They'll suck you back in. Now, when they're sucking you back in, they are extremely seductive. They're very intelligent. Now, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to treat them as though they're a normal person, and you're going to want to tell them all the ways that they hurt you, because you're looking for assurances in the future they're not going to do that again. Now, they may come and they're going to apologize, and they will, in my case, even sit down with you for hours and listen, and then tell you, yes, when I was a kid, this, and I react this way, and here's what's really going on with me, and now I have this awareness that I've done this in the past, and I'm not going to do that, because now I see. And you think you're with the most self-aware person in the world. I thought that. The first 2 or 3 times she broke up with me, when the hoovering phase was there, and she was acknowledging, fully, seemingly fearlessly acknowledging all of the ways that she was wrong, and then talking about how she was going to change in the future. I thought I was with this super intensely conscious person who was making changes and was going to move forward, and I thought, holy crap, okay, she was a little bit off in the beginning, but now she's gotten through her fears and she's going to be the best in the world. Now, if you're a normal person and somebody like me, I've spent, years and years and years in therapy looking at myself. So in my experience, most of the time, when people are able to get that aware of themselves, it means that they are very conscious, they've worked on themselves, and it is going to make a change. Because normally, normal people, when they're destructive and hurtful, they don't see their part, they don't want to see their part, they're in denial, and they can't. It takes years of self-examination to be able to identify. Borderlines, at least the one I was with, she was a master of self-identification. But now I know it's not self-awareness. How do I know that? Because she would do the exact same thing every single time, as though everything she said the night before never happened. And sometimes, in fact, most times it would be the night before. Deep emotional bonding experience, crying on both sides, and here's this, and I did this, and you did that, and you'll do your part. And here's what I've done. Lots of times I've found in relationships with non-borderlines that when there's been pain, I really seek to look at what I did. And I bring to them and I said, I did this and I said that and you didn't deserve that and I'm really sorry. Now, normally what that does is that creates a feeling of safety in the other person, because you're showing them that you have the ability to change in ways that are helpful to them and to the relationship. And they know that going forward that you will change. And that stimulates them, most of the time, to do the same. And then they will change to meet your level of consciousness. That's what happens with normal people. With borderlines, when I do that, what I found is that she heard and recorded every time that I would acknowledge what I did wrong. She would remember all the things that I did wrong and all the ways that I did things, but she would never remember her part. And so in 3 breakups later, she'd say, yeah, but you told me yourself that you're this and you're that and you do that. That's not my fault. That's your fault. You did that. And so what am I? They're brilliant at manipulating that way. And it's because they're not aware. So do not get hoovered in when they very accurately acknowledge and analyze their own part in the destruction of the relationship and in their negative behavior. In fact, in my case, numerous times she would sit there and say, God, I'm so sorry, and hug me and say, I can't tell you how sorry I am. I'm going to get better, and I'm going to learn how to be a good person, and I'm not going to do this to you anymore. And I just can't say sorry enough. And part of it was, and this is important, part of it was confusing for me, because if I were to get to that place, you would be able to feel the regret. You'd be able to feel in me the regret for what I did. In her case, she could, kindly and lovingly, apologize and say, I did this and I did that. But there was this lack of emotion there that was sometimes very confusing. And then, and at times she even said, I'm sorry I'm not showing enough emotion. It's so hard for me to think about it. I can't bring up all the emotions about how sad it is about how sad I am for what I've done. And I've come to realize that that was her sociopathic tendency. She really didn't understand. She really didn't feel deep, deep regret or remorse. She could intellectually acknowledge it, and she could intellectually see, and so she could pare it back. And there might have been some regret and some, feelings of sadness, but they were very superficial, if there at all. because she had no problem literally the next day doing the exact same thing or even worse. And when I would say, but what about all those apologies you said yesterday? And it would just bounce off like it never happened. So they're not aware, but they may be very brilliant at presenting a facade of self-awareness. So I think I'm going to talk about the facades later. I think that'll be my next one. Okay, so no, they're not self-aware. If they are borderline and they're not in therapy, I don't care what they say, they're not self-aware. Guaranteed, when you are the most vulnerable, when you need them the most, that is when they will attack. And they will attack you and hurt you when you are the most vulnerable. And they have no idea they're doing it. So get the hell out.